Okay. You done with all your distractions?
I don't know.
Squirrel. Chickens.
I really looked over
Chickens.
there.
No, literally, there are chickens that have their Christmas lights up.
There is a constant dog barking over there, so that's going to be awesome. Hopefully it doesn't come through, but it's so high-pitched.
I didn't hear anything you said. I just heard bark, 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 bark.
It's an annoying little dog, too. Like,
Bark?
I walk that neighborhood all the time, and anyway, the dog usually doesn't bark this long, so it makes me think there's actually something going on over there. You know the neighborhood like me? You know all the burglars, man. Burglars love to be around at like 7:30 a.m.
Speaking of burglars, the burglar is back. The hamburger burglar is back on the McDonald's. Whatever.
Really?
I'm like, that's a blast from the past. Everything's coming back. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy town, USA.
Crazy.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
And I didn't even do a run test to see test. You know what? Let's stop this.
Probably should stop.
Yeah, I want to make sure. Let's do a chickadee check yourself before you
wreck yourself. A shotgun.
Bullets is bad for yo.
Hell. What? You gotta finish the what?
Chickadee check yourself before you wreck yourself.
I thought you were gonna stop.
Bullets is bad for yo.
Hell. What?
Okay. Awesome. People are like, okay,
and now we're gonna like, let's put that as our intro.
Right.
People will be like, what?
What is this?
We probably should change our intro again, by the way.
Again?
Just because and now when you said it, / awesome. Remember that?
Uh-huh.
It's like, at this point, it's for the regular listeners to be like, okay. And it's not bad.
Maybe I should make a
it's
forward
not bad, but
/ awesome. And just
Yeah.
forward it.
Yeah.
I should just do that.
Anyway, I was thinking about it this morning. I'm like, does that mean to me? I mean, we did a good job is the thing. It's a good one. And I don't really want to record it.
Okay, let's not. Let's just keep it. All right. And go. Go time. Hey everyone, welcome to the Shrink Think podcast. We are excited. I'm excited. I'm not sure where you are. Distracted.
Yeah, I'm trying not to be.
Trying to get excited for this episode. No, I mean, we're always excited to be here, as always, but just showing up and looking forward to unpacking this topic that we've got today, which is kind of an interesting one. It applies to all kinds of different relationships. Friendships, family relationships, partnerships.
Not as much with your dog, though.
No, because I think the dog kind of repairs a lot easier. The dog just comes and like sits in your lap and is like,
yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay.
He's my best friend. He totally understands.
Yeah, you get me. But this is like situations when you've had like a disagreement of some kind and it's big enough that like it has gone unresolved and you're sort of maybe at a stalemate, and I don't want to say like you hashed it out for a long time and you're at a stalemate, although that could be the case. It's more like you've reached a point where you're like, okay, I don't really know what else can be said about this, and you sort of, maybe there's a pause, somebody takes a time out, or maybe it's like late and or you're hanging out and like you just go separate ways and it's really unresolved, right? And so then you're left with this, and I guess it could even be a coworker relationship where it's like, okay, we're gonna go home, and like the next day you're at the office and it's like, hey.
Or you just focus on your work. You're like not gonna talk about whatever.
Right. But that's like the feeling, right? It's like It's awkward. So you're like, okay, I'm just gonna like focus on my work. I'm gonna bring my own water instead of like bringing my cup to the water cooler. Sort of situation.
Right. Yeah, you're now avoiding. You changed your lifestyle just a little bit.
Right.
Now I have to get water 5 minutes later because he always gets it at this time.
Right. Exactly. So it's like those situations, like what do you do when you're in that situation and you don't want to like bring the thing up again, because it's like, what are you going to say? And you don't want to just repeat the past or rehash what was already said. But you also don't want to like move forward and like start this thing up again. So like, what the heck do you do? Like, what's a good kind of, I don't know, starting point, or what's a good approach you can take for that? So that's kind of what this topic is.
Yes. And I would say that we will call that starting point validation. But before we get to that, make sure that you go to the swag shop. Right now, for example, if you were watching video on YouTube, because we actually are there, even though YouTube is...
We are in YouTube.
We are there.
Land USA right now.
And Aaron is drinking from one of the cups that we have on our swag shop. It is a little wine insulated goblet thingamabobber. That's
Tumbler.
Tumbler. Oh, tumbler, yeah.
That's a wine tumbler. It does have a lid as well.
It does, yeah. And it says, be more, don't whine more. Spelled with an H, by the way, for wine.
Wine. No
wine.
Stop whining.
Stop
Get
doing
in the
it.
chopper.
Okay, I'm going to get sucked in. I'm going to... All right, so...
Easily distracted.
Back to our show.
Back to the lecture at hand.
People are like, stop it. Okay, so thinking in terms of validation and what's going on when you get into a situation where you've had some kind of disagreement. There's kind of there's quite a few situations where this can occur, but a lot of times the response, where I feel like as a therapist I end up trying to intervene, is when somebody is just avoiding the whole thing. And the reason that they're avoiding it is because either A, they don't want to deal with it. They just don't want, they're tired and exhausted of it. B, they don't want to deal with it. Has nothing to do with exhaustion. They're just avoidant. They just don't want to deal with it. Or C, they feel like there's it's not going to go anywhere. There's an impasse that's just done. And so in every one of those situations, what I would say is you have to start the next time you have the conversation, the next time you meet with them.
Like any kind of an interaction. If you're going to broach this conversation or interaction or relationship with this person.
Yeah, and let's define that a little more, because I'm thinking of, like, you see them the next morning. Oftentimes, you're like, if you're in the office, you can do other things. You don't have to have a conversation, so you probably would choose not to. Maybe you're not even in the morning, you see them, you're not even up yet. Same thing if you happen to live with the person, that you have your morning routine, you can just do that and avoid everything.
And you're not meaning like if this is your coworker that you live with?
That would be different.
Yeah, okay.
That would be
different scenarios.
Yes.
To clarify.
Oh my good
If
Lord.
That's your situation, we'll have a different episode.
Telecommute. We telecommute together from, we go to each other's house. And anyway, so my point is that it doesn't, it's the point when you would do this would be at the point when you're, when the tension's kind of in the air. Like, and it's kind of one of those things where you walk into it directly, or you really have to avoid it. You have like a decision in front of you. Ultimately, what I would say to get buy-in from you is you've got to think in terms of relational ease. Like, if you want this relationship to be easier, then you need to do what we're talking about today. It doesn't mean, by the way, that I'm not telling you, it's going to all be fine.
It's not a magic bullet, right? No. Or a magic wand that fixes everything. This is like the thing that begins the repair process.
If you don't do this, you will not reconcile. It will not happen. It will just keep repeating. So some people, for example, are really good at ignoring. They can avoid pretty well. But when you get into, like, it's like time, the whole coarse crap that time heals all wounds, it does not do that. It facilitates the ability to do that.
It's just an empty vessel, and you got to put something inside of that time, or do something productive inside of that empty vessel in order for that healing to take place.
So you don't do anything, things feel easier because of all this time's gone by, and then you get in an argument of some kind with the same person, and what ends up happening is they pull out, or you pull out, all of these things that you didn't get through in the previous conversation, and now it's like some therapists will call it like pulling out everything in the kitchen sink and just throwing everything in there.
Or sometimes I know people will go back to like, well, what I was trying to say was, or my point was, and it's like you're just reiterating your point as if the other person didn't hear it, or as if we just boil it down to this one thing, right, then that's going to somehow get us somewhere. but it's like the other person is going to respond with like, well, I already know, or I know, but my point was this other thing, or that's because whatever. It's like you just picked back up again, right? Because you're entering back into the content of whatever that disagreement or discussion was. And so nothing really has changed. If you want to look at it this way, it's like you were doing something and that was not producing a good result. And so if you keep doing that same thing again and again, right, and expecting a different result, that's our definition of crazy. And we don't want crazy people listening to our podcasts. So
no, it's okay. It's fine.
So don't do that. Instead, you want to do what we're talking about on this episode. And so let's
talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Boom shakalaka.
Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Sign up for our course. Only $499.99.
That was $490. Yeah. So this all comes from when I'm talking about validation, which all comes from, in my mind, kind of the setup is there's a communication style out there called the Imago couples dialogue. It's a specific way to do conversation, and I teach it to I'm teaching it. I teach it to couples. So the setup is you do this thing called mirroring, and then you do validation, and then you do empathy. The reason why I like it is because it separates out validation and empathy, which other conversation styles put together. And I've found that it makes the most sense to separate them, because until you really can prove that you understand logically what the person is saying, you can't actually connect emotionally. You try to it's like you'll try to do it like in an integrated way because it'll feel natural, because you want to talk about the person's feelings because you're recognizing their feelings. But if they don't believe that you understand what they're saying, then they won't believe that you get it from a feeling standpoint.
And oftentimes that it's kind of like you're blending the two, you're blurring the lines between the two. And you kind of need to get buy-in, or you need to sort of get approval to move from one to the next. And it's not as linear as that, although this format does kind of make it a little bit more linear, just so that we accomplish the goal of each one, so to speak, right? If you don't have that, then oftentimes what I always tell couples is don't say that you understand, explain what you understand. And that's a good example of something that helps the other person to know that you really and really feel that you do get it. Because the goal, the outcome that you're going for is the other person needs to feel felt. They need to feel felt, right? If you just say, oh, I understand. Well, okay, great, check. It's like, I don't know that you understand, because we were just arguing before and you didn't seem to understand. And now the only thing that's changed is you've said the words, I understand. That doesn't tell me, sort of in my being that you really do get it. I don't feel more at ease, right? Felt like, oh, you really do understand the logic of what I'm saying. So that mirroring is like making sure that you're getting all the information correct about what the other person is saying. Like, okay, no, I understand you to be saying this. And the cool thing about that process in the mirroring is that it helps you to clarify maybe like, this is what I understand, and then the other person can clarify, yeah, that's mostly right, but there's this one piece that you didn't get quite right. And it's usually like, it's something silly, but it's super helpful, right? Because it's, oh, I thought I understood that you were experiencing it in this, dark blue way, and you're actually saying you had experienced it more in this medium blue or this light blue way. Just a slight shade differently. It's still blue, still in the blue family. So I was close, but not quite right. That can be the difference between really feeling felt and being able to move forward and not moving forward.
Right. So we are not going to teach you the Imago couples dialogue, to be clear. But the reason I bring it up is because the dialogue's pretty structured in the way that they really want you to go bing, bong, bing. Mirror, validation, empathy. What I've learned when you've been in a kind of a disagreement of some kind, the next time that you go to communicate, mirroring doesn't need to be a part of the process. Really, where you have to start out is validation. So what validation has to do with you're jumping in the shoes of the other person, looking at the world the way they look at it from a logical place, not from like how they feel about everything, just from logically, you're agreeing like, okay, this person is not dumb. They have a viewpoint. I don't necessarily agree with it, but they have a viewpoint, and you try to connect to that viewpoint, and you also bring in everything that you know about that person is available for you to use. So it doesn't mean you're going to talk about everything you know, it just means that it's available.
So why would you not want to connect with the person's feeling or how they experienced that viewpoint? Why are you leaving that part out?
So when you go to share the validation, you have to leave space for the person to be able to tell you that you get it. Because if you're not, when you go, like, let me give you an example. This is random, it could be applied to any relationship. So if I come in the next day and I say, hey, so we had that argument last night, and I know both of us didn't get anywhere with it. And it seems like from your perspective, what you were trying to tell me is you didn't really care about these three things. What you were trying to explain to me was this, this, and this. And that makes sense to me because ultimately you've always cared about this subject in this way. You've talked about it in other situations. And so it seems like that's what you were trying to get at. Am I understanding that right? And because if I just jump to feelings based on what the person's face was, or whatever my experience was, that is a secondary situation based on the argument that we had.
I see. So it's kind of like what we said earlier. It's like if you haven't done that first part and you skip that and you go to the second part, the feeling part, you might have actually gotten some of that information incorrect. And so they don't necessarily have the buy-in that you really get it. Mm-hmm. And therefore they don't have the buy-in that you really connect with the feelings. You might be mostly correct about the feelings, but there's not that buy-in. So it's kind of like you're doing that prematurely.
Right. So, and then when you say something like in my example, the other person might be, yes, that is what I'm saying. Like, that is exactly what I'm trying to tell you.
That was like I was kind of imagining, when you said that, I was imagining, okay, this is our disagreement or whatever. I care about these other things. As soon as you said that, I kind of felt my body sort of relax a little bit. Inside, I was like, yes, that's it. Yes, that is what I care about. It's like this, thank you for seeing that.
Right. The other side of that too, it's like it can land with the person that like, wait a minute, you disagree with that? Like, you seem to understand that. Why do you not? So now there's more of a natural question.
We can move out of the like frustration or the hurt, whatever that negative feeling is, and then we can move into curiosity and collaboration together.
And let me be clear about this. This is, we are making this very simple sounding. This is probably one of the most difficult things that you can do in a relationship. It is the secret sauce of making things go forward and connect it all.
We're just professional therapists who do this all the time, so we make it look very easy because with our workouts, our muscles are so huge. We're just used to lifting these huge things that are so light to us now because the muscles are gigantic.
Oh my goodness. That's all from the pit of hell live. Yeah. Well, what I'm talking about, the difficulty is when you go to do that conversation, in other words, when it presents the opportunity, what you're going to feel like you're doing isn't what I just said. What you're going to feel like you're doing in the examples is more like this. Hey, yeah, I just realized you're totally right, and I have no choice but to agree with everything that you're saying. I'm not sure why I ever disagreed, and may God have mercy on my soul. Which everything in your being is going to be going, do not do that. Urgh.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that you said that, actually, because I think it's important that our listeners hear that. And also, I would say it's going to sound like you're saying that, and also, what in my experience talking with people, it feels like you're jumping into your shame. It can feel like, for a lot of people, if you have a hard time doing this, it can feel like you're also saying, "I'm such a bad person. You're a better person than me. I'm such an idiot," or what's wrong with me, or clearly I don't have, I'm not as smart as you. There's all these kind of like insecure inferiority kinds of things, because essentially, like, I think people who can struggle with this, that shame of like admitting that somebody else has a different viewpoint than yours, you're kind of saying what you believe you're saying is mine is no good. It's one or the other. Yours is right and mine is wrong, or yours is good and mine is bad.
Mm-hmm. And the thing that folks will regularly say, and I've completely experienced this, is this thing called a human being, is it feels like you're totally agreeing with the other person. Validation is not agreement. All you're doing is saying that you can see it from that perspective. And earlier in our example, remember that the other person's kind of comes to the place where they feel like you should agree since you understand this, because I know that my belief system is awesome, or whatever. But that's how the conversation can go. So what I will tell people too, I'll just add this in, Aaron's going to say something in a second, is it doesn't really matter. Most of the time, it doesn't really matter like who starts the validation. What I tell people is whoever has the most energy to do it. Honestly, you meet the next morning, you've gone through the coffee, you're ignoring things for a while, whatever. And then it kind of the opportunity, whoever has the most energy to go like, okay, I can do it. That person starts. It's not really.
And you should, if you have the energy to do it. I want to encourage you. Yes, do it. You should do it. It feels humbling, to walk to the other person and to offer this, but you really are offering. You're making an offering to the other person that is something that's generous, that is good, right? That's connecting or whatever, and it's like a peace offering, right? And if you are the other person that's receiving it, dang, freaking receive it, man. Like, don't pick up the argument, don't make your point, humbly and graciously receive it. Say thank you, for saying that. I do appreciate it, or whatever. Like, because the other person has gone through the effort to give this, right? Receive it and complete that process and make it a good one.
Right. The reality is that if you're listening to this podcast, the likelihood is you're trying to be a good human ultimately, and which means that generally speaking, you take relationships seriously. Like, they're important to you in general. So all you're doing is honoring your own value in that way. That you value relationships. You're going to try to remember that. You're being respectful to the other person by recognizing their position. And in that way, if it doesn't go to, like we started off in this podcast, this does not mean that everything's going to be fixed. But you can look yourself in the mirror and know, like, okay, look, I'm doing what I can do. And validation begins a process for reconciliation. And think about it this way too. Earlier we were talking about how when you don't have this communication, kind of ignore it and expect time to fix it, all these things come flooding back in. If you do this, that will not happen. And if it were to happen, it would be awkward to be the other person knowing while they're doing that is entirely stupid. They will
know it as well.
They will
know it.
Yes, they will like hit them in the face. All right, with that, I think it's time, Aaron. Have a great day.
Awesome. I keep thinking with all the things that we add in that it gets it like over 22 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, it's about 25.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm like, let's see if we can hit it at 20.
Which, at 25 is all right, to be honest. I mean, like when I was saw it this morning, I was listening to the Losing Yourself this morning or whatever. I think the same person that would be okay with it. People want us to talk longer anyways, the feedback I get. But I don't want to. I mean, you just want to complete the freaking subject in a general amount of time.
Right, exactly.
I'm not going to try to make crap up to stay on there.
Right.
Like,
and if it's going to go long, it's like,
I like Skittles.
Right.
Sometimes I eat M&Ms.
But wait, which colors do you like? Oh yeah, I like those ones too.
I actually don't like Skittles, by the way. BT dubs.
You don't? I can't believe it.
I like peanut butter.
We should talk about this.
In case you want to send something.
Those are the best. Please send them to the Drinking Podcast.
I don't.
Peanut butter, the giant family size bag of
Yes,
peanut
I have
butter.
one of those for Christmas.
Why did you bring those in?
Because you're here. You will eat them all.
Yeah,
You
I
have like the,
I will eat
you are a
some.
sweet tooth. You will eat them faster than me daily. I've only had like a
Daily
little
and
bit.
nightly with them.
Right.
Yo, I don't know.
To the extreme, you'll glow like a big gigantic M&M.
80. What are we calling this? This is validation. Good one. It's
That's a good
2024.
That there's a good one, man. Don't care who you are. Care who I am. What are you guys talking about anyway? Good. Awesome.
Oh my goodness.
That's on